Welcome back, Land Golf Academy members and guests, and I stumbled across this video while I was modding the Golf Swings Reddit, and this one caught my eye because it shows what we are doing when we don't set up correctly based on our body build, our body type, and most of this is a compensatory motion, but I believe it's going to help you identify some things that you can look at your golf swing without having to mess with your golf swing first. Remember, it's all grip, alignment, setup, posture. If you're new to this channel, this is what we do. We diagnose golf swings. We teach about cause and effect. If you do like this at any time, do us a favor, hit that like, share, subscribe, comment if you want. Really helps the channel grow. But without further ado, let's help this gentleman out. He suffers from the pull hooks, and we're going to talk about why and how we can do some quick changes and probably notice some immediate differences. So when I first look at a golf swing, I'm looking at cause and effect and looking at the body rotation, centeredness, balance. We're looking at setup and how that affects your plane. Now this gentleman definitely suffers from what I read from the pull hooks, not big hooks. And what we can figure out from that just by the description is club face is probably pointing slightly left of the targeted impact with the path moving slightly right. And we can already see that this is a pretty steep motion, but there's something bigger to this. It's not necessarily simply flattening out your plane and trying to come more on the inside. There's something at play here, and I want to make sure that you are educated enough to look at this in your own swing, because it could be something as simple as a setup change, which can really help. So let's break this down. So the first thing we're going to identify is posture loss, and why is there posture loss? So before we get to that, I want to look at the shoulder tilt relative to the spine angle. So we're going to draw the spine angle in both the left and right video. Now keep in mind, a lot of this is eyeballing it, but it's going to show up its purpose fairly soon. So we have a 44-degree bend forward with the iron and a, let's call it a rough 40 for the driver. Now, how does that play a part in coming too steep? Well, let's take a look at his top of his swing and let's look at the shoulder tilt number, and they should match each other if you are truly rotating around your spine and if your body mechanics allow for that. So let's do the same number. Let's back it up so we can see where that right shoulder is and get a rough idea. So there's the top of the right shoulder and there's the top of the left shoulder, and we see a raise of, let's call it, eyeballing it, close to 10 degrees. And the same on the right side. Let's see what happens here. So there's the top of the shoulder to the top of the shoulder, and we still see a raise. So it looks like we're raising out of our spine angle 10 degrees. Now, what can that start to do is it starts to mess with your arm plane and your path, because he's an athlete and he's trying to get his hands higher to that secondary plane. Now, once you get your hands higher, however, based on losing your tilting, your hands want to go lower just as a result. So this compensatory motion of getting the hands higher to get to that secondary plane line is what is going on. But to help understand that, let's talk about what is the secondary planes. So if we take a look at the lower plane line on both of these, your upper plane line is, if you were a robot and you were able to get to that secondary plane line, your left arm should be perpendicular to that lower plane line. So let's see how much we get up there. So he does get up there because of his athletic ability, but he gets up there with a loss of tilting. Now that's going to play havoc on your path on the way down, because essentially your hands are much higher than the tilt. Now when they're much higher than the tilt, no amount of rerouting can get this to change. And what we're looking at is, if we draw this where the club is pointing down on both of these, we can see that they're pretty close to that center point where the red line and that yellow line cross. So he gets a pretty good job, but they are too high based on his shoulder tilting. So if we look at the triangle check, if we just draw a triangle, and we do this in our favorite Barney purple, if we draw that triangle check on both of these, what we'll find out is, look at the path of the hands from this point. They don't necessarily drop down that green line quick enough. So this gives him a very steep angle. Now when you're very steep and you are an athlete and you're able to rotate, his body is doing fine because it is trying to square the club face for him. But when you have a lot of body rotation and a steep plane, you are trying to flatten it out, and he gets it pretty close to being on line on both of these. However, you can see relative to the lower plane line, he is very steep, and this is what gives him that path issue with the club face. There's two ways to take care of this, is to add another compensation, which for him would be to take a direct hand path straight down. So we'll draw this in orange. So his hand path would be one like this, where he's trying to reconnect on the way down and then rotate to match his shoulder tilting. But that's going to be an issue because now there's a compensatory motion and timing is going to be involved. So that's the one cure. If you're going to work with the golf swing, that's the one cure for this motion. But is it going to change the underlying effect, which is not the goal? Remember, this is that would be a band-aid fix. And as the most famous saying goes, band-aids will fall off. You would need to change something, but what do we change? And again, this is rough estimate for both of these, and we're going to look at a 43 and 35. And why is that important now? Because now let's draw it in red. And let's try and figure out where his spine should be. So we're going to take off roughly 10 degrees of this spine angle. So we see there's 33 degrees, and let's go to here and take off about 10 degrees. Is 10 degrees on both of these. But now let's take a look at why that's important, because this is where he should be setting up. Because if you take a look at his motion, where does his spine angle fall to? It actually backs up to where it is. Look at that right side specifically. We can see that his body is trying to find that red angle in the backswing, and by doing this we are losing shoulder tilt and making up for this with our hand motion, which then sets the trend for a very steep arm manipulation to try and make up for the tilting issue. So we have a little bit too many things going at it, but let's back it up even further. So now we know that he loses his posture up. Now why does he lose his posture up? Let's take a look at where his centeredness is. So let's clear up all these lines here and let's go straight to the centeredness of his swing. So to find your center, this is the best way I have found to do it for 99% of you out there. Is you draw your lower plane line and then your spine angle. You want to keep your spine angle running right through the center of your chest. And what you want to do from there is draw another line from the center of your arches of your heels straight up to the sky. And you notice that both of these, where is the X on both of them? They are both on the right side. So you can see this is very toe heavy. Most of this weighting is being supported on the very front of his feet. Now, being an athlete, you will always try to find the centeredness of your swing. So in order to get his X in that Barney purple line, that little X there, he is going to have to figure out a way how to get it closer to the center of his arches. And what's one way to do that is to pull back and out of your posture. So we see that little motion there. He's pulled back and out of his posture to get that center more underneath his hips. So again, this is all related to setup. Do not change your golf swing. Most compensatory flaws are from misalignment, incorrect setup, which could also reflect to ball position. So I'm not sure where this ball position is because it is a down the line. Face on would allow us to see where that ball position is. Maybe he is moving off of the golf ball because that ball position is in the wrong place. So the moral of the story for all of you guys and girls watching this is don't tinker with the swing, because the swing is trying to make it work for what you give it. You have to take care of your core fundamentals, which is grip, alignment, setup, and posture first. Take care of that. And along with those changes, you will probably also need to have some in-swing changes to compensate to the changes you're doing to your basic fundamentals. And that can only really be done with somebody certified that understands cause and effect, that can help you based on your modality, based on your body mechanics and your mobility. So I hope that helps you out. This is not a typical breakdown that I usually do. I break down the whole swing, but I think this is a very key video to show you that it is setup that controls everything in your motion. Hope that helps you. See you next time. Fairways and greens.